Welcome to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. Thanks for all the likes and comments on the last video. If you would like to support this channel, please hit the like button and consider subscribing if you enjoy the content. And now, let's start with the first story. It's called All It Is. This happened well over a decade ago. At this point in my job, I used to handle a lot of retention work for my group. Thankfully, this is no longer being done, as we are paperless, boxing everything up. Lots of paper, faxes, signed documents, etc. Sending it off to where it's stored offsite. Each box usually held about 2 weeks worth of work, so you can imagine how much paperwork we had at the time. Like clockwork, every 2 years the audit decides they wanted to make sure everyone is doing their job properly, so we have to jump when they ask. At around this time, I was getting close to having to take time off for a surgical procedure that was supposed to keep me sidelined for a minimum of 6 weeks. Unfortunately, I still had to deal with the idiocy of looking for one page in a box that needed to be pulled from retention with an auditor present. This went on for 2 weeks before I was now just over a week away from going on my medical leave. Knowing this, I sent an email out to audit, CCing not only my boss, but his boss and his boss's boss to let me know exactly what they need so I can get it ordered before I'm off. It was all about covering myself. I sent it 8 days before my final day before the leave. Got no response. So I follow up on Tuesday before I leave. Again, no response. Wednesday, I sent one more. This one with a bit stronger wording to it. I finally got a response. The response was sent to me just before midnight. The response was only a few words. Just send it all to us. All? To make sure I verified that's what they wanted. And, lo and behold, I get back an immediate yes response. Okay, got it. All it is. Normally, I would have needed to just send a form by fax to get any boxes delivered. At most, we'd get 10 boxes sent back. However, under these circumstances, I called, told them what I needed, and was met with stunned silence. They asked if I was sure I wanted what I was asking. I told them I didn't want them. Audit did. They asked if I could please put it in an email and send it as soon as possible. I did. I also CC'd all the other appropriate people who were on the other email. Late that Friday, about 30 minutes before I was to leave, the boxes arrived. One of the gentlemen who was delivering them called me from the dock and asked where I wanted them to go. I said audit. Gave them the floor and the extension of the contact person. 176 retention boxes were delivered to audit as they requested. They wanted them all. They got them all. So many boxes were delivered that there was absolutely nowhere to put them in their area. They had to put them in hallways and people's cubicles. By that time, I was gone and I had officially begun my leave. It wasn't until I returned 8 weeks later that I found out about the fallout. Apparently, audit wasn't too happy. Lots of threats were made. They wanted me to come back immediately, wanted me reprimanded, wanted me fired, etc, etc, etc. My boss at the time was awesome and showed them the email where they said, just send it all to us. The lead auditor tried to explain it away, but my boss pointed out that I had emailed numerous times and they could have amended their request at any time. In the end, they were forced to deal with it. My boss's boss sent out a company-wide memo saying that no one was to assist audit in going through the boxes as they had requested them. On my first day back in the office, I was met with stone silence from audit. I got one email about a week or so after my return, asking me to return the boxes to retention, but my boss responded first. He made sure that audit had to handle it, sending everything back, and he asked me to forward the form to them. After that, audit never asked for me to do anything for them over the years other than a clarification here and there. My only regret is that I never got to see the look on the auditor's face when all the boxes started appearing. The next story is called Just Your Orders. In the early 90s, I was a salesman at an electronics store in Indianapolis. It was the one right next to the corporate office, so people from corporate were in the store all the time. That day, the district manager was in the store. At the morning meeting, the store manager told us that absolutely, positively, no big ticket merchandise was to be taken out the front door. It didn't matter who it was. All items had to be picked up at the warehouse door at the back of the store, under threat of immediate termination. Later that day, a VIP customer came in. She was there to buy a computer for her daughter in college. I helped her select her desktop system. After ringing up the sale, I gave her the pickup ticket and directed her to drive around back to the warehouse store. She looked at me in shock. I told her that it was company policy and there was nothing I could do. As soon as she left, the other salesman ran over, asking what was going on. They couldn't believe what I had done. About 15 minutes later, the store manager and district manager hunted me down. They were obviously upset. All the other salesmen on the floor stopped working and waited for them to begin chewing me out. They wanted to know why I hadn't taken it out to the car myself. That treating her like that was terrible service. When they paused for an answer, I simply said I was doing exactly what you told us to do that very morning. I treated her like any other customer because I wanted to keep my job. I could see how mad they were. As soon as I said that in front of the entire store, I knew my job was safe. They turned around and left without saying another word. The third story is called White Spacing. About 10 years ago, I had a sales development internship at a technology company. For those who don't know, sales development is the worst job in sales because you cold call and cold email people at work who aren't expecting your call, and you do this all day, every day. But it has its moments and it's a path to a better job. It was actually the second summer after I had a good experience the first time. In the time in between, while I was at school, there was a management shake-up with a new CEO. The CEO definitely preferred hiring friends rather than professionals. She actually ended up destroying the company. The second summer, all the familiar salespeople faces were there, but I had a new boss. I could immediately tell she was a turd. One of those people who interrupt you on any question and just tells you to figure it out. I'm very busy. A great choice for a boss of 3 interns who are here to learn. We were told on the second day in a meeting with the whole sales team that this year is going to be a little different for the interns, more structured. And I learned that we are not going to be calling or emailing anyone. No, we are going to be white spacing. Remember when I said cold calling is the worst job in sales? I lied. White spacing is corporate for data entry. In our case, going into every account and customer in our system of record and updating tiny details like their industry, address or phone numbers for every contact. The boss planned for us to whitespace every day, for 8 hours, for the entire internship. I was crushed. Not only would I learn nothing, but it would be mind-numbing. The other 2 interns were brand new and didn't know what was happening. A few salespeople tried to speak up. Hey, he was here last year and he did a great job calling for us. We actually closed a few deals thanks to him. Shouldn't we have them do that again? This was immediately shut down. She said she didn't trust interns to do high-risk work like that. Mind you, sales development is an entry-level job, so we start white spacing. Among many things, there was this field called current solution, where we were supposed to record the incumbent software at the account. To fill it in, we had 3 options of competitors, other, and leaving it blank. Despite my deep dissatisfaction with this job, I wanted to do a good job, so I could leave this internship with a recommendation and get a real job in a year after I graduate. However, as you might imagine, it's pretty impossible to know if an account is using a competitor if you don't talk to anyone there. We had one service we paid for that was supposed to have useful info about the accounts, but the current software was usually unknown. But I did my merry best going through several thousand accounts and ended up finding info to fill in for every 1 in 10 accounts, and the rest had to be blank. And I fire off an email saying all done. What can I work on next? Then I get called to the manager's desk. Explain to me what is going on here. I see the report of the accounts and data points I entered. Well, I completed all the white spacing you asked me to do. Except you didn't. You did almost nothing. Look at all these blanks. I tried to explain. For the fields where data was unknown, I didn't want to put anything wrong in, so I left it blank after reviewing in our info tool. And the boss starts raising her voice. Well, then you need to dig harder and find the information. I realize this is a futile effort and say, okay, I will try harder. To clarify, you want these fields filled in no matter what, even if nothing is in our info tool? Yes, aren't you listening? I want to see some real effort this time. Now go, I'm very busy. Well, I trotted off and went into those thousands of accounts and did exactly as I was told. I filled in current solution and other fields no matter what. And since the info was impossible to find, I just put other for all of them. Worse than blank, it was useless data. And I wait a few days, taking 2 to 3 times longer than I originally did to show effort. Because screw this. In my head, I was actually itching for a second fight. The report obviously said other for everything, so I figured this will start her off. And I can rub her nose on how pointless this is. But that doesn't happen. No, she calls me back and praises me. She goes sing-songy for a moment. This is amazing! Exactly what I asked for. Absolutely incredible completeness of information. Thank you for showing real effort after my coaching. I'm watching her scroll past all the other fields, and in my head I'm just overjoyed at how stupidly good this turned out. My boss then parades me over to the other interns, whose reports are woefully lacking, and pats me on the shoulder and says, "Now I want all of you to follow this example and learn from him how to get your reports up to par." And she walks off. I sit down and tell the others, "Okay, here's the trick I found to make the reports the Ray boss likes. You ready? Fill in other for every field, because she doesn't care about the data, just that it's filled in." But that would be lying. Do you want to get chewed out again? Well, no. Can we find the data anywhere? No, it's impossible. Cool. That's exactly my thought process too. So we just fill in crap and she'll praise us for making gold. And they filled in trash too. And our boss was glowing over all of our reports. Now, this was only week 2 of 10 of the internship. I started to get worried that I might have set us up for a bad time, because more white-spacing requests started coming. But on Friday, our boss gathers the whole team and shares that she is leaving the company, and there's no replacement. In retrospect, I wonder and hope that maybe she got fired. All the salespeople hated her too. The moment she left, I went to a couple of the salespeople. "Hey, since the idiot boss is gone, can you share some accounts for me to call and do some interesting work for once?" And then the 3 of us interns actually had a fun summer and didn't whitespace a thing again. The last story is called Not the Boss. My first job out of high school was a big deal for me. It was a simple data entry job that I took very seriously. I started moving up very quickly. With so many young entry-level employees, the turnaround was high, and I guess sticking around made me stand out. I was soaring in that company. Before I knew it, I was a supervisor of a team. In the department I was in, there was only one other supervisor. We worked very well together and agreed on almost everything. The 2 of us made a full training for our department, a department policy sheet, and conducted all direct employee contact. Our department was doing so well that our manager was recruited by another department for a much more lucrative role in the company. The new manager was the nicest man alive, but as an outside hire he didn't know anything about how we ran things. At the same time as he was getting acquainted with us, the other supervisor went on maternity leave. I was the only lead in the department left that really knew what they were doing. It sounds rough, but I blossomed under these circumstances. I helped our new acting supervisor, whom I'll call Trevor. I went into all meetings with my manager to take notes and help him understand what we were discussing. I hired all the new staff members, from talking to the recruiter, conducting the interviews, and making the call to offer the position. I was running the show, and I loved it. Our new manager was not really grasping things and told me he was thinking about leaving. I was sad to see him go. He then told me that he thought he would ask them to have me backfill his position. This would have been the opportunity of a lifetime. A week later, my manager told me that he talked to the director, but the position wasn't going to me. It was going to the acting supervisor, Trevor. Apparently, this guy had been schmoozing while I had been working. I hadn't even been paying attention to him. Trevor had become buddy-buddy with the director by spending all his time in his office and going drinking with him at the driving range. I was heartbroken. I wasn't aiming for the job until my boss suggested it to me. I had gotten my hopes up, only to be crushed. I tried to shake it off and get back to work. I oversaw department projects. I had one that required thousands of entries on an Excel sheet. I assigned our staff to the project and did my share. At the end of the day, I had gotten the sheets back from everyone directly under me, but nobody on Trevor's team had emailed me theirs. I went to one of the desks and asked about the project. The person I asked shyly told me that Trevor told her not to do it. When I asked her why he would say that, she told me that he said I wasn't her boss. I was shocked. This is how we done every project since we opened the department. What was he thinking telling people not to do it? I'll just say, while shocking, it wasn't out of character for him. I had always been able to keep him from causing damage in the past, and this didn't need to be any different. Then I realized what a golden opportunity this was. I decided to maliciously comply. I just nodded and thanked her for her help. The next day, the director called the manager and supervisors into his office. He asked me why the project wasn't completed the day before. I shrugged and told him I had sent it out to the team like I always do and had even done a chunk of it myself. I looked at Trevor. The look he gave me. He was pale and looked at me as if I was about to sentence him to death. When Trevor eventually tried to explain that he told the staff under him not to do it, the director asked everyone but Trevor to leave. The project had been related to payroll, and Trevor had royally screwed over the payroll staff. Our director was livid. He was in there for over an hour. I heard the director raise his voice more than once, which was wild. The doors and office walls were glass. When I passed the office a bit later, I saw Trevor with his head down, while our director was shaking his head and moving his hands in a very animated manner. A week later, the other supervisor returned, and Trevor was asked to return to his old position under her. I was offered the position of manager soon after, which I gladly accepted. And with that, we end today's video. Let me know what you think about the stories. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the stories and today's video? I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like what I do and want to support me, please subscribe and hit the like button. I hope you have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.